That's where the story stops. Exactly, exactly. And with that in mind, BvS Ultimate Edition versus Civil War. I am so tired of people who think they know about comic books and comic book movies, think that they know what these two stories are, and you're just jumping on the bandwagon because it's a Marvel film and all this other kind of stuff. I don't want to hear all of that. First of all, um, the stories in BvS and the story in Captain America Civil War are so similar because let's just call it what it is. Marvel usurped Zack Snyder's story.
Yep.
They did. So if anybody read the Civil War Omnibus, the Civil War Omnibus was similar. It had similar beats. There was a group of superheroes called the New Warriors or something like that. They did something similar to what Wanda Maximoff did. It was Nitro though. So in the comic, Nitro was the one that exploded. Okay, killing like 600 people. In the movie, obviously, it was Wanda Maximoff who once what's his name? Was it Bartlow? What was his name?
I don't remember.
The one Steve was fighting. He was playing Crossbones.
Oh, that
Oh,
dude.
Frank Grillo?
Yeah, Frank Grillo's character. So remember in that film, except he was the one that blew up. So he blew up. Wanda Maximoff threw him in the air, and then he exploded in the building, killing a whole bunch of people up there. So okay, so Zack Snyder's BvS plot line, his story came out before they had that idea for Civil War. They were going to do Civil War based off of what the comics was about. There was no Nemo in it, by the way. Nemo had nothing to do. I think he's mentioned in the comic about running the Thunderbolts. That's it. But Helmut Nemo was not the primary antagonist in Civil War. It had nothing to do with that. It did have something to do with they called it they didn't call it the Sokovia Accords. They called it something else. But it had a similar, basically, when those people got killed, when those 600 people got killed in that comic, it was Shield, I believe, who came up with the idea for this new superhero act or whatever it was. Obviously, in the movie, it was the U.S. government, and then it was like 118 countries or something like that. But so yeah, Russo brothers should be thanking the yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. So when he was going through what he was going through with BvS, they were lifting his story. They were taking every element from his story and then switching everything around. They made Zemo. They made Lex Luthor. They made Steve Rogers Superman, and they made Tony Stark Bruce Wayne. That's what they did, and they made just like Lex Luthor pitted Superman and Batman against each other. Nemo did Helmut Nemo did the exact same thing. The exact same thing.
Now, one thing though, I want to point out to Sox here. Mikey Sutton, when he was alive, said that Civil War didn't rip off BvS. I remember when Mikey said that. I can believe you that. Here's the thing, though. It's the Avengers storyline, not Civil War. Because originally Civil War was going to be the Serpent Society, and then all of a sudden when they're seeing BvS,
yes.
Now we need to pivot because now we need to put Batman and Captain America and Iron Man together against each other. So how can we tie this so we can use the story that was stolen?
Exactly. It was the Serpent Society socks. That's what it was. So if you look at the comparison, but BvS was going to be all about Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent, Superman and Batman, but and Lex Luthor, and that whole plot revolved around what Luthor did. They switched that entire story up in Civil War and made Zemo the primary antagonist in that film, who pitted Steve Rogers and Tony Stark together. Yeah, using Black Panther to do it as well. So it was those three characters in it. They switched that stuff around when they knew that they didn't have a chance. Basically, BvS, like I was saying, was going to eclipse anything that they had coming out, and that's when they decided to change everything.
Yep.
No, it makes sense. It makes total sense. Now that tweet, what was? See, I didn't get the full context of that tweet with James Gunn. What was the date of that tweet?
The one of the picture?
Yes.
Hold on.
2011 or something.
Hold on.
2011. So the theory is if that's real,
Mm-hmm.
he's been doing his thing behind the scenes and been involved since then.
Yeah.
Wow.
Think about it. Well, think about it this way. He wrote Dawn of the Dead, and then they rewrote it, and then you fast forward all the way till 2011. He's up and coming, so he's doing stupid stuff in between before this whole Guardians of the Galaxy thing even popped off. But he's up and coming. So technically, he wasn't really tied to any studio at the time. That I don't think he was, but he was still friends with Jeff Johns, who wanted to run the DCEU. Okay. Yep. He was with Peter. Yep. He was with Peter. He was friends with Peter Safran already.
Yep.
These things were already
friends with Joss Whedon.
Exactly. These things were already there, in place and ready to go when all of this happened. Christopher Nolan made the recommendation. This is the guy you want, Zack Snyder. You want this guy. If you want your universe to succeed, just like how I told my stories with the Dark Knight trilogy, this is the guy you want. You want him to do it. So they brought on Zack Snyder. And ever since then, I think Jeff Johns, Peter Safran, Toby Emmerich, Walter Hamada, this was a plan from the get-go. It was.
Guardians was
how else do you release tweets like he's released over the years, get fired, right? And then get hired back with no problem.
So are you saying that like remember when they were on the search for like the new head of DC? Like they went through people after people, like Dan Lin was on there and a few others. So you're suggesting that was all a ruse? That they had
I don't think it was a ruse. I don't think it was
a ruse, but I think it was I think that James Gunn at one point was on a fast track. That's what I think. I think that he was on his way to DC and not necessarily Marvel. Okay. And then he jumped on board with Marvel, and then all of those tweets came out, and then he got fired. And then DC hires him suddenly, right? And then they bring him back to Marvel to do his last movie, basically his last Guardians of the Galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I don't think it was a ruse. I just think that they were playing a long game. So James Gunn was promised the job a long time ago. There you go. He was. Mm-hmm. Somebody in there, even if they were not permitted to say or even in the position to say he was going to have that job, Nolan's suggestion to bring on Snyder was the one that they went with. Period. So
I see a pattern.
Exactly.
Like listen, there is a pattern because listen, Guardians came out in 2014. Okay, right after Avengers came out in 2012. Then the Guardians came out in 2014. Listen, Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, it was good. I give credit where it's due. Good job, James Gunn. You did a good movie. And then what happened later? You
mean he sat behind a camera and shot some cinematics based off of a script that he really didn't write? Yeah,
that's also true. That is also
Roger
true.
that. Yeah.
So and notice how all of those people that they have a connection. Now that you guys bring all that up, it started with Kevin Sujihara, and then it moved over to who was the next one? Toby Emmerich and Sarnoff, and who else?
Walter Hamada.
Toby Emmerich was always pushing for Gunn's Superman. I remember articles from, this is way before they announced James Gunn as the head of DC Studios, where Toby was pitching to him. They said they would go to the gym and work out together or something like that in the article.
Yeah.
And every time they would meet up, he would always say to him, James Gunn's Superman. James Gunn's Superman. So
I've learned a very, very valuable lesson over the years, guys. WB and Disney or Marvel, they've been in cahoots for a long, long time. They have. They have been. When it looks like they're warring with each other on the surface, they're execs. They're people from behind the scenes. They They drink together. They smoke cigars together. They do things together.
Are you
This is
sure
how
that's
they.
everything they do?
This is how they. But I'm saying exactly. But see, this is how they get together and shit on artists.
They go to islands together.
It's like I will give you this if you make sure. Think about it. If you make sure that Marvel stays on top, Warner Brothers, you're going to go through some stuff, but we will do this. We will make sure we will give you the Marvel formula, as it were, and we will bring a guy over to your side to help you out with that, if that's what you want to do. But you got to do something for us. You got to make sure we stay on top. So why don't you tell us what your boy Snyder is doing over there? There goes the plans for BvS. There goes the storyboards for his Justice League, even down to the 5 years later for Endgame. That's not a coincidence, guys.
It's not.
Okay, it's just not.
Yeah, no. This has been, like I said, this is definitely some corporate espionage shit that happened, and
it is. It happens all the time.
And unfortunately, there's nothing that we as fans can do about it. Only thing we can do is talk about it, remind people, and